again. So to this third video in our project of developing a responsive navigation bar. Thank you for, if you have been following us in our previous two videos, you remember that we successfully created our HTML file, and then after that we started styling. All right, we started styling. So in this video we're going to continue styling, and this time we're going to be properly setting our hamburger icon, all right, in the mobile view. All right, so without wasting much time, let me pull up my VS Code. All right, so this is my VS Code, and if you remember in the last video we stopped here where we actually have our logo and the span which represents our hamburger icon. So I'm going to now take off that span. So because we are not going to be actually using an icon, we are going to actually style this span in such a way that we have better control of it. So I'm going to copy that class, the hamburger class, go to CSS. But I want you to notice that this span element, which has a class name hamburger, is actually wrapped inside a label for our input element. So we are going to also style the label container first. So I'll go all the way to the bottom. I'll put a comment here that says hamburger styles. All right, hamburger styles. It's always a good idea to put comments in your code. All right, so the first thing we'll do is we are going to style our label container for the hamburger. All right, so what are we going to do? We'll give it a width of 1 rem, which corresponds again to 16 pixels. We'll also give it a height. All right, give it a height of 1 rem as well. Excellent. So if you go back to the screen right now, you're not really going to see anything. It's going to look like there's nothing here. So what we will do, just for us to know that we actually have something there, I'll just temporarily put a background color, all right, that is visible, to make it visible. So I'll put the aqua sort of greenish lemon color or greenish color, and now we are able to see that yes, we have this label container for our hamburger that is visible. But if you look at the design just one more time, our icon is supposed to be all the way to the right, not butting against our logo. All right, so to take care of that, we're going to go way back to our main header, and then we'll use a property called justify content. All right, and we will do space between. So we justify content, space between. We are now going to have excellent. So we have our logo on the left, and then we have our hamburgers container represented by this label with the background green all the way to the right. But we don't want it butting against our viewport this way. We want some space around that. So we're going to add some space around our header using padding. So we're going to set a padding of 1 rem as well. 1 rem. So this will enable us to have this. All right, excellent. So we now have space around it. Fantastic. So the next thing is, of course, we don't want this green background. We actually want our 3 stripes, as you can see here. So what we will do is to begin styling our hamburger. So if you remember clearly, the hamburger, which is a span element, has a class name of hamburger, and I'm going to use that class name to target that span element. All right, so we have that. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually to give it a position of relative, because I want to create the hamburger icon using pseudo element selectors. All right, there are some people who I know who will just go ahead and duplicate the span element 3 times. Well, if that works for you, fine, but I find that method doesn't really give me the kind of control that I want on the icon that I will create. So I'm going to use pseudo elements. All right, so I'm going to position the hamburger relative, all right, so that it allows me to position the pseudo elements after that. Then the next thing I will do is to style the look and feel of the icon, because if you look at it critically in the design, there are some properties for the pseudo elements. The stripe that is highest at the top will be a pseudo element. The stripe At the bottom will also be another pseudo element, and then the main span element will be the middle stripe. All right. So I'll be using the pseudo elements before and after. So using the group selector, I'm going to target the hamburger pseudo element before. All right. Put a comma. Target the pseudo element after, and then I'm going to put some appearance properties, because if you look at the three stripes, they all look exactly the same. The only difference is in their positioning. So what are we going to do? So first thing, the background color that they will all have will be the same, which will be black. All right, so they will be black. Next, they also have exactly the same width and height. So the width in this case will be 100% because I want it to fill up the label, which is its container. The height will be, the height, my my code editor is a bit slow. The height will be 3 pixels because it's just a single stroke. It's just a line. So the height will just be 3 pixels. So what else will they have in common? They are also going to have a Z index in common. Z index, remember, they are positioned. So they are position elements. So they are going to be out of the regular flow. So I'm going to have a Z index of 1000 because I want them to be the highest in the stack. All right. So we have that. What else? What else do we need for them right now? We can also put a border radius to make the corners a bit rounded. A border radius of let's say 5 pixels. No, 5 pixels is a bit much. How about let's say 3 pixels. All right. Don't know if that will have an effect, but we'll try out and see. So this is what it looks like right now. So if we go back to our browser, so we still have the background color from the label, so we need to take that out. One more thing that is very important that we need to apply, because if we go back to the browser now, you won't see anything in that position. And the reason is because span elements are actually inline elements. And for inline elements, if you don't put any content, like here, the span element is completely empty, no content. For inline elements, if you don't put any content, they will have a default height of 0 and a default width of 0. And also because they are inline elements, just specifying width and height won't give them won't make them take the width and height. You will need to change them from being inline elements to block elements. To do that, I'm going to do a display block, all right, on all three, and that will automatically make them block elements, and voila, we can now see that our first stripe is visible. This first stripe actually represents the span element. So I'm going to open my dev tools, and I'll go right into my body, go in my header, go in my label, and then let me move this to the side a bit, and you see right here in the span element, once I hover on it, you can see that it actually is the stripe for the span element. Now if you look at this, there's actually no pseudo element right yet, no pseudo element before or after, and the reason is because we have still some styling to do on the pseudo element. So I'm going to make a copy of these two pseudo elements because the next style will only affect those for now. I will paste them here, open the rule block, and I'm going to give it a very important property, which is content, which is necessary for pseudo elements. Without the content property, pseudo elements will not work. All right, so now they have a content element. All right, and immediately we'll go back to the screen and we see that we start seeing the pseudo element. So if I open up my dev tools, now you can see that we have both pseudo elements, the before and the after. All right, so we're not done yet, we're still working. So the next thing now will be to display the pseudo elements before and after, positioning them absolute, all right, so that they are now relative to the span element. So if you go back there, they are now all stacked. All right, they are still there, but they are all stacked. So if you come back here, bring the dev tools up, open your pseudo elements, see the before and the after, they are all stacked on top of the span. All right, excellent, good. So we're making progress. Now, the next thing I'm going to do to finalize creating the icon is to style our label in such a way that it centers the span element. So I'll do a DF on it, which is display flex. Then I'll do a justify content center. And then, of course, center vertically by using align items center as well. So this will center the span element directly in the middle of the label. All right, so let's go back there. Voila. Now there's something else that we'll need to also see. Let me go to DevTools. Once I hover on the header, you can see that the logo and the label are not quite in alignment. All right, they are almost in alignment but not quite in alignment. So I'm going to apply the same align item center in the main header, to ensure that it's in alignment with the label and its content. So I'm going to do a center there as well, and this will adjust it so that it's more centered. So now if I go to DevTools and I hover on main header, voila. So you see now the logo and the what do you call it now, the label, they are actually now centered. Fantastic. So we're making progress. So the next thing is to create the pseudo elements before, position them, the pseudo elements before and the pseudo elements after, so that they work exactly the way we want them to position. So let's go back. I'm going to start with the pseudo elements before because it's before. All right. So I'm going to give it top property because it's positioned absolute, so I have access to the top property, and I'll give it in -6 pixels. All right, in -6 pixels. So if we go back to the browser, you see that automatically the top has moved up in the opposite direction upwards by -6 pixels. All right, then I'll do the pseudo after as well. Duplicate this, change this to after, and this time I'm going to do a top of 6 pixels so it goes all the way down. Excellent. So now we have successfully finished developing our mobile navigation bar. So the mobile navigation bar is now successfully complete. If you look at our design, all right, if you look at our design now, exactly, so we have our logo and we have the three stripes. Of course they don't have the same texture and all of that, but that is not so important right now. The major thing we're going to be focusing on is on creating the main structure, the main responsiveness. Of course you can add some font styles to it, and then maybe also work on the thickness, the height. You can reduce the height and get the same effect. But for now, we're focused on getting the responsiveness. So we have successfully built our navigation bar in the mobile view. So in the next video, we're going to go ahead, finish up our nav, because remember, we still have a nav to work on in our mobile view. The navigation is there, it's just that it is not visible by default. So in the next video, we're going to continue working on our styling to ensure that we complete our navigation menu and then subsequently finish up with our large screen navigation bar. So see you in the next video. Thank you.